Hello and welcome everybody to the Guardians of Liberty podcast. I am your co-host, Zach Taylor, and today we have a panel. We have our host, Nathan Parada. Did I say that right? See, you always have to do this.
You did. You said that just fine.
All right, and then we have representing Young Americans for Liberty in the Lincoln campus, we have Trevor Riley.
Hello, how's it going, guys?
And then we have Mike, whatever. This is the Guardians of Liberty podcast.
Did you forget my last name?
No, I just don't think it's important.
Whatever.
We have Mike Knievel, the old face of the party.
Wow, the old face of the party and the old face of the Roads to Liberty podcast.
Yep.
I'm the senior citizen of this group here.
Yes, you are.
Still a millennial.
Yep.
Roads to Liberty presents the Guardians of Liberty with your hosts, Nathan Parada and Zach Taylor.
So you'll remember about 2 months ago now, when we had the Turning Point USA from Creighton University on, and they were referencing an incident that happened on the Lincoln campus with their group. And we haven't really talked about that since, but there's actually been a lot of developments about that. And Trevor Riley is here to talk about it from the perspective of the Young Americans for Liberty. And you guys have been working somewhat with them, correct? What's been going on down there?
So we've really just been kind of monitoring the situation. Turning Point USA isn't actually a registered affiliate down at UNL. Young Americans for Liberty is pretty much the more active, liberty-centric organization down there. And we've actually just been following it, and just recently there was a letter released by 3 state senators. It's actually State Senator Steve Erdman, Senator Tom Brewer, and Senator Steve Holleran from legislative districts 47, 43, and 33. And they sent a letter to the UNL Board of Regents, a couple other guys, and they basically kind of harassed them. They said, hey, what's going on? What's going on at university? The professors eventually responded saying, what the hell? Like, we kind of got blindsided by this. And they came on to Colby Mock's show. Colby Mock's a popular Lincoln personality down there on the radio. Mm-hmm. And they kind of hashed it out. And so this is kind of like, it's a lot more of a, like, what came out of this? What came out of the Turning Point USA incident? And some of it's a little bit of like the same old. Like, yes, this is a problem. We're not going to do much about it because the graduate student and the professor, they're both still at the university. There wasn't really any major repercussions, at least none they discussed. And what we're kind of doing going forward with this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we talked a lot about this on that episode. I remember the individual.
Hold that microphone up to your mouth.
Like this?
Yeah, there you go. Love it strong.
All right. Okay, we'll restart. Yeah, well, we talked about this a lot on that episode, and I remember the individuals we had on. They expressed desire to have that teacher fired over this incident. And given the situation, I can understand the desire for that. It was a very hostile situation that teacher put that student into, and for no good reason whatsoever. And it just seemed like afterwards they held a academic freedom rally right after this incident happened. They just, quote unquote, and they just made the entire thing about them. They made themselves out to be the victims here, as if Turning Point USA was attacking academic freedom at UNL and trying to tell these teachers what they can and cannot say, when really the only thing they were trying to do is, recruit for their club, which, as far as I know, is totally permissible at UNL. And, they came out, called them fascists, called them Nazis, yelling at them, made her cry at one point.
So
Stuff that you wouldn't want a teacher to do.
So I've got a question. Mike, you said that you went to school there, what, in the 80s? I forget how old you are.
Seriously, I'm not that old, man. So I went there. I was there around 98 to 2003.
Okay. And you said that you were in the English department, right?
Well, you've seen the movie Son-in-Law, right? And
I think so. Is
Oh,
that the
okay,
one with
Pauly
the
Shore movie,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, okay, yeah.
probably going to be losing this reference here, but he changed his major, every other semester. That was kind of like me.
Okay.
So yeah, I had an English minor, poli-sci major.
You had a poli-sci major. You're
But no, so I was in mostly the liberal arts, as you would call them, over there, and psychology and things like that. And in my English classes, I'm really kind of shocked by this because I was looking at the website now, and all my English classes focused on actually reading renowned authors and focusing on your writing skills, and in film learning technique.
So
things like that.
English?
Yeah. I'm kind of curious though. So those were like the core values when I went there. When Nebraska still had a good football team. What are the core values now?
Yeah, this will be fun. Trevor, tell us about this.
This is actually part of the letter when the state senators are calling out the university. They say, does anyone teach English anymore at UNL? The homepage for the English department at UNL advertises its core values as 1. Pursuing social justice, 2. Affirming diversity, 3. Engaging with a broad array of real and imagined communities based on empathetic understanding, and 4, fostering a sense of belonging, and 5, instilling a desire for civic engagement. Now, okay, I can definitely not contest that. Affirming diversity, yes, you are allowed to be who you are. That's something that the Libertarian Party stands for. You're allowed to be you, as long as you don't hurt people and you don't take their stuff.
Diversity means something very different to us, though.
Sorry?
Diversity means something very different to us than it means
to them.
to...
Yeah, and that's part of the academic freedom rallies where they twisted a lot of words. But, obviously, yes, it's some of these that just aren't really constituent with, actual values that you want to be teaching people for English.
Where's English on that list?
It's not.
Yeah, the funniest thing about it is that it had a link to the homepage for the English department. And I read through the whole thing. They denounced Trump's travel ban. They reaffirmed their support for the LGBTQ plus community. I'm probably missing a few letters on that one. They talked about diversity. They talked about this, that. Never once did they mention anything about English or famous authors or Shakespeare or anything of that nature. The entire thing was written as though some social justice blogger got a hold.
Nathan, what you're saying right now is really problematic because you're only mentioning white authors and white playwrights, and I'm going to have to ask you to check your privilege. Even though you're not white, you're acting really white right now.
Yes, I am, but I don't understand. I mean, maybe it's just me. I bet it's not, but maybe it is just me. I don't understand why an English department would put their opinions about Trump's travel ban in their homepage. I'm sorry, is English all of a sudden a political subject? Is that what English is? I remember taking English in college, and I don't remember the teacher ever going off on a rant about the president for whatever reason. It just doesn't seem like English of all things should be political, but you go to their homepage, and that's exactly what it is. It's all politics.
I would entirely agree that they're using their platform. I think that these teachers are using their platform. They're using their newly acquired power to essentially spread their knowledge and essentially reaffirm that their knowledge is absolute fact. I am right because I am in the position of power, and you are not right to actually question or criticize. I'm in that position of power. That's what I feel like some of these teachers, that's what they come off on. But that's one of the kind of nice things about being in STEM is that you're not really subject to opinions. Everything's fact.
Yeah. I hate to tell you this, but that's not going to be true very much longer.
I will say I did have a science teacher, a chemistry teacher, that defended the science behind climate change. He said a lot of this stuff is still theory, still work, and not theories in the actual scientific sense, but theories in there are studies. There is no consensus. There it is still contested. There are varying solutions on the magnitude of climate change. I will say, wow, I'm actually surprised that this guy kind of said that. Wow, he win against something that's popular. And, his right to say that, that's absolutely reaffirmed. But when you use that power to squash your students' beliefs because you're a teacher and you're in that position of power, that's when you're absolutely wrong. You are absolutely not utilizing academic freedom. You're being a dang bully.
Yeah.
So, a lot of this stuff should fit in well with like the political science department. And when I was going there, I had professors that would teach both sides of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I had professors that were actually, from Israel. I had one that was a Palestinian. I actually got both sides of an issue. And, professors were even teaching like, hey, here's the information and the facts and everything about the Electoral College, about Congress and everything. You form your own opinion. You tell me, are you going to defend this or are you going to say we should change it? Now, from reading this, it seems like it's a pretty widespread thing. I mean, University of Nebraska isn't the only one doing this, but a lot of these departments are kind of moving away from that. Hey, you form your own opinions based on what we're giving you. Argue a very good point, and maybe we'll give you a good grade. They're like saying, no, you argue the point. That's pretty much how it is in some of these classes now.
That's how it is in some of them. I know one of the other students in UNL, Sally Hoffman, she actually does have one class where she does frequently headbutt the teacher. He's very calm from what she's told me, but he is very he can be contentious on some things where he does say, like, I will not say this university is a liberal campus despite this incident happening. We really don't have any race happening on this campus, any instance of hate. It's just in this turning point. And he uses that authority. He again uses that authority to kind of watch it and really intimidate other students' thought. What we're trying to do is for UNL or for Young Americans for Liberty is we are trying to engage students. We are essentially trying to trigger them. So this next event that we're going to be doing is actually going to be a gun information booth, which we're actually looking forward to.
Oh, cool. So when I was going to Midland, I had a teacher like this, and I guess since you're a little bit older than most of the other students, right? Yeah. So I was
5, so yeah.
Yeah, I was a couple years older than you when I was going, so I had the kind of the old man in the class most of the time. And something that I found is, like this one teacher would be going off on some questionable interpretations of culture and the Bible of all things. Like her masterate or doctorate was in like historical biblical theology and all this stuff, and we would argue about things that to me it's just like you can read this and it's common sense, and she would be going on about how that's not true and just trying to beat me over the head with, well, I have a doctorate. And it finally came to the point where it's like, okay, you have a doctorate, I have 3 years of ministry experience on the ground, so you're not going to bully me. I know what I'm talking about. And if I hadn't had that, or I wouldn't have been older and, having gone deployed and all those things, if I was 20 years old and didn't know my butt from the hole in the ground and I didn't have any confidence, she would have steamrolled me. So how do we break that? Because that's not good for intellectual development.
It's not even just the UNL thing. You see incidents like this happen at universities all over the country. I mean, we all remember those videos that came out of Evergreen College last year, where the students literally took over the college, were roaming the streets with baseball bats.
And that was a left-wing college to begin with. They were eating their own on that one.
Yeah, exactly. It was already a very progressive college. I mean, they went so far as to have to escort the president of the college to and from the bathroom. The campus police had to tell, who was it, Brett Weinstead. He was the guy that they were angry about. The campus police had to warn him to stay away from campus because they were afraid that the students were going to kidnap him if he showed up. He had to move his family away from the college because these people were that insane. I mean, there's nothing like that happening at UNL or any Nebraska campus as far as I know. So that's good. It's not that crazy. But Nebraska is you would think that something like this happening, Nebraska would be one of the last places for it to happen. But academia to its core is progressive, all of it, and it doesn't matter if you're in the heartland of the U.S. It's still going to seep into your campus culture, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and I mean, I don't think that UNL really has a huge risk of being overswept by the left. I don't think we have any Antifa rallies we got to be worried about anytime soon, because when you look at the number of staff that is on UNL, to a certain extent, this was an isolated incident. But it was absolutely outrageous that a staff member behaved themselves this way. So I was glad to hear on Colby Mock, the representatives from UNL, they did denounce this behavior. They said, we do have some training to do. And it was kind of funny. They actually almost sighed as they signed off, like, well, we will be revising our policies on free speech and faculty's use. And they just kind of, they're not really happy that they got to kind of pull this up because of this one incident. Like, all this staff and this one person. Look at this chain of domino setup. But that is all it takes. It takes just one person either, start setting a trend of, hey, we can just squash this free thought, or it takes one person setting a trend of, hey, why can't we live tolerantly of each other? And I think that's what I'm really excited about working with Young Americans for Liberty with, is because they're doing an exceptional job of creating these chapters where they can mobilize, educate, and train, the next generation of American youths who want to propagate these principles of liberty. And I'm really enjoying the work we've been doing so far. I'm really glad with the reception we've seen. We've been doing a lot of different events, and it's really great to see students finally getting involved.
So, got a question here for you. How active is Young Americans for Liberty with the student government on the university? Like, do you have any representatives that are also on ASUN? Are you working closely with them on anything? Do any of your Young Americans for Liberty have any aspirations to work with the student government? Like, for you, next year, would you consider running for president of ASUN and really switching up that student government there so that people feel like the campus is a bit more open and tolerant of opposing viewpoints?
I could see myself doing what I can to finding somebody who would want to run, and I'd be happy to help them. I really want to see younger people who are getting their degree and about to enter the workforce. They're about to go to different areas of the country. That's who I want to see join Young Americans for Liberty. And we've had a lot of people who are interested. We've had a lot of people coming to meetings. We are really focused on building up the chapter because this is our first year. It's a little bit difficult to get people to be consistent, but I mean, it's a battle. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So we do our 1 meetings a month. We do usually 1 or 2 events a month, and we usually have an informal meeting where we just kind of hang out and talk liberty, just shop talk. And I'm hoping that we can continue to build this up. And I do want to build up the space. I do want to get students who are, making connections. We're working with the Second Amendment Institute. We're working with other organizations on campus and talking with them to make sure, hey, how help me help you? Let's help each other out because we're fighting the same fight. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and man, I've seen a lot of activity from Young Americans for Liberty across the country lately. I think one of their big gimmicks nowadays is to have a giant beach ball that it's a free speech ball is what they do, and they give people markers, let them write whatever message they want on them. I saw an event the other day where they had one of these free speech balls, and they had a clothesline for people to come hang up flags and to bring in signs and put them up. And what happens a lot of the times though is they have these events, and then some Antifa idiot runs up and stabs the free speech ball because he cannot abide people. They cannot abide people expressing their viewpoints that run counter to them. I mean, I've seen this at least 3 times that this has happened. One of these giant free speech beach balls, they just stab it with a knife. They literally do that.
So I'm aware of 2 casualties currently in the ball for free speech. I guess I said that right. in the ball for free speech, the free speech.
So the free
there's been
balls,
2 that have been stabbed. I'm sorry, say again.
So the free balls.
The free balls. 2 casualties though. 2 casualties so far. And that's what I've heard about. I think this year. I know that they've done in past events. I know that they have been evicted. They have been attacked. We have done 3 free speech events. We did 2 free speech human billboards where we walked around with poster board draped around our neck. We had people write whatever controversial opinion or thought they wanted. And then we also did the free speech ball where we went all over campus. The free speech human billboards, we just kind of stood around in the Union. And we had good response to both, you know. People weren't really all that afraid to write up. We had people saying F Donald Trump and people saying, MAGA. So it went both sides. We honestly did get both sides of the spectrum, but we also got plenty of civil discourse, moderate opinions in between. There was plenty of people who just said, end the drug war, bong rips for Jesus, an armed society is a polite society. A lot of people were actually on point. They were thinking, like, hey, I think this is right. Some people said Medicare for all. I was like, okay, well, why do you think that? Why do you think this? There's always some room that we haven't found where we can get people to engage. Even on the industrial hemp days that we had as well, where we propagated all this information about industrial hemp and why we should bring it to Nebraska. We had a lot of people from the left and right just coming up, and I asked them, hey, would you support industrial hemp? The entire point was to get a tally, and people would mark yes. All the people that we had approach us in the Union said yes. This is a total of about 64 people. In the Union, you can't approach people, you can't call out, they have to come to you. So it's a little bit harder to table. But I think it was a good response for the 3 hours that we were there. It was a great response. I was really happy to see that people did have a certain medium where they were happy to share ideas and thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I like your. I think that you can attribute that mostly to the culture in Nebraska. It's a lot more even keel. It's not like California. It's not like the East Coast. Not like all these other places. And the Nebraskans tend to be more even keel. I would be very surprised if I would have heard of a Nebraskan running up to a beach ball and stabbing it with a knife.
I don't think any Nebraskans that would have a knife on campus would be, leaning left anyways.
Most likely not, but let's get further into this letter. This wasn't the only issue brought up. I think it was one of the bigger issues that the English department had absolutely nothing about English on their website, but it was all about social justice. But yeah, there's more to it, so I'll let you read a little.
So one of the other big issues, outside of Katie Mullen, the sophomore at UNL, outside of her being attacked by these 2 faculty members, she was also approached by another university employee, and there's a video of this, where the man told her, hey, you can't be here. You can't set up your table here. This isn't a free speech zone. And that has, what do you mean free speech zone? Katie basically stands up to him and says, okay, well, whatever. Doesn't matter what you say. I'm still going to be here and hand out my literature and talk to people. One of the things that the professors were super pissed off at her to begin with was that she had a sign that said socialism sucks, big government sucks. And they were just really pissed off at her. They called her a neo-fascist Becky. Like, that's what actually drove her to tears, is this hate language, this hate speech that they use against her, and this accusation, and it is legitimate hate that they use against her.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this, and I was unaware that Becky is a racist term for sexually loose white women.
Yep, that's what it is.
When did that become a thing?
I think it was maybe 2008, shortly after White Chicks. I'm not certain.
Oh.
No idea. Don't ask me.
It might have been shortly after White Chicks, but it's been around. I think it was also like a reference to Sir Mix-a-Lot's I Like Big Butts video where the white girl is talking to her friend Becky. Oh my gosh, Becky. Look at her badonk.
Aren't you a little young for that song?
But hey, don't ageist me. Anybody can appreciate that song.
I mean, it's way after Mike's time though, so.
But basically, like what this free speech zone BS. What this came to is that these university representatives, when they were on the Colby Mock show, they refuted this. They said, you know what? There is no free speech zone. The university does not have any free speech. That is one of the better takeaways. Is that they absolutely receded away. Is that there is no free speech zone on campus. The entire god dang United States of America is a free speech zone, unless you're on private property and somebody says quiet down.
But the university is public property, man. I mean, it's all of our taxes and my tuition, went to help pay for that. But
And
tax
so
money was not supposed to go towards yelling at sophomore students and call them Beckies.
no, but there was an incident back in the old days, Zach, when I was on college there. I believe it was the crew team. They had a bunch of the team went streaking across campus. And this happened around 2000, and their punishment that the campus put on them. I mean, some of the faculty and some of the campus administrators did was said, well, you have to do a clothing drive, and basically it's like middle of winter, and they're out there in very little clothing doing a clothing drive. And it's like, please give us your clothes back so that we can stay warm. Like that was the kind of environment and the kind of punishments that you saw for these things. And I don't want to be talking about like the good old days, because this is only like 16 years ago, but that seems to have changed in that. And I don't want to keep aging myself here, but back then in the old days, like why were we so much more open to other ideas? I mean, coming out of the 90s, and my class watched September 11th happen from the Union, but now it's really disheartening to hear. And like, I've got two little kids, and like, I don't know if I'm going to be sending them off to college. Go to a trade school, go do other things. Get your education elsewhere, because there's a shitload of free education available online. Why do you need to pay this much money for a liberal arts degree now? I don't know. It's frustrating.
Absolutely, and one of the things I would remark is that I definitely believe in the unschooling movement that's taking place, where people are taking advantage of, hey, I can be a homeschooling a parent and take care of the homestead, either spouse, and my children basically grow up at home. I can take care of them, and they can learn everything online. There's so many resources available for me as a parent that I can provide all the education and resources my kid needs, and oftentimes I can do a better job of it. It's a little bit cheaper for me, and you know what? We don't have to put that much time into it. We can actually just have play dates, so I can still get all the socialization that my kid needs just from not being in school and utilizing my time more effectively.
I was homeschooled, so that's actually something I can speak on quite a bit.
Same here.
Yeah. We should do a homeschooling episode at some point and just talk about like the pros and cons and how important it is to socialize your children so you don't end up crazy like me.
The innovations that we have nowadays that make it possible.
Yeah, my school was on a satellite, man. Like, the only way I got out of having school was pretending that there was too much snow on the satellite and hoping that my mom didn't catch on. I love you, Mom.
Yeah, that's the thing about it now. Everything is so freaking polarized now. Discussion, honest, calm, rational discussion is almost impossible. Especially...
Stop bouncing your microphone.
What? Oh, I'm too far away? Yeah, like the younger you get, the less tolerant of opposing opinions people seem to be. And there's a host of reasons for that.
The under 16 crowd statistically is not that way, actually.
They haven't been to college yet.
Fair enough, but they're also about to go into college as the most conservative generation since pre-World War II.
I heard about that, yeah.
So they say conservative. They're actually more libertarian because, they're not against gays and they're not. They're small government types, and they're leave me alone types. So,
here's the unfortunate thing, though, is I think a lot of it is the fact that academia leans so progressive. Not everywhere necessarily, but primarily academia does tend to be a more progressive field, dominated by progressives, and they get people at a very young age. And especially for this last election, it was more about getting out your base than convincing people to vote for your candidate. So the best way to do that, the best way to do that is to demonize the other person. And the Democrats did this so effectively that now everybody thinks that the left now thinks that everybody on the right is Hitler and a Nazi and a fascist and yada yada yada. I mean, I saw an ad the other day that was made by this group called Latino Victory. Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
That Gillespie campaign video where they have the little kids being chased down by Ned Gillespie supporters.
Yeah,
right before there was a truck terrorism attack.
These people called themselves Latino Victory. Let me tell you, they do not speak for me, these idiots. Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen it, we'll share it on our Facebook page later tonight for those of you who haven't seen it yet. But it's pretty much you've got
They
to
took
pick
it
up
down, so it might be a little difficult to find. After the
I've got it
terrorist
I've got it on my
attack.
Facebook page.
Okay.
I'll see if I can share it from there. But it's basically you got this pickup truck driven by a white guy with a Confederate flag on it, a "Don't Tread on Me" license plate, and Nick Gillespie bumper sticker.
It's got a Gadsden
Trying to
flag
run
on it
down
too.
minority kids. This is the level of discourse we're at in this country, where now the left thinks that if you're on the right, if you support Donald Trump or Nick Gillespie, that you want to murder minority children. This is what they do. And you know what? This is why discourse in this country is so irrational, is so emotional, and it's impossible to actually have a conversation with people.
I almost want to give them props though for being able to find every single little minority they could have jam packed in there. You know,
Oh,
they
yeah.
had the little Hispanic kid, they had the little Indian kid, they had the
They
little
did
Muslim
not
girl.
have any
Yeah.
Eskimos.
Oh, they didn't have any Inuits. Nope.
So we should give a shout out to Cliff Hyra, who's running in that race as the Libertarian. Good luck, buddy. You are definitely against two garbage people, so I hope you pull a miracle out somehow.
Well. So yeah, I mean that ad was horrible, but look, political ads have been doing that for decades, and maybe you can throw this one up here or a picture of it when you post this here, Zach. But do you remember the Lyndon Johnson advertisement from the '64 campaign, the Daisy Girl ad?
No, I wasn't around then. That's all
Well, no,
you,
I mean
buddy.
you read about it, you've seen it, right? You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yes. This is
Okay,
going to be
well,
my running joke. I am going to tease you about being old forever now.
You have more gray hair than I do. So
I
shut
do.
up,
That's
right?
what's funny. This is mostly gray.
He's agreeing with me, but no. The Daisy Girl ad. I mean, basically that was Lyndon Johnson saying, hey, if you vote for Goldwater, you're going to be witnessing a nuclear holocaust.
So
your
You want the
kids will be
thumbnail
dying.
of this to be a nuclear holocaust?
What's that?
You want the thumbnail for this to be the nuclear holocaust from that ad?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. But yeah, I mean, so running down minorities, nuclear holocaust. I'm drawing a blank here. I think it was in the Bush and Dukakis one, the Willie Horton ad. I mean, there are horrible ads that happen every election. This cycle just happens to be all about race because, like, they're making everything about race.
The difference, though, is now people honestly believe it. You know, they've always been horrible political ads. I mean, I don't remember them ever being that bad, but they've always been bad political attack ads. But after the election, people mostly forget. You know, people settle down. They're like, "Oh, darn it, my candidate lost. Better luck next time." Or they go, "Oh, yay, my candidate won. Cool." Now, there's no, there's no going to winter quarters anymore. We talked about this in a previous episode, I believe. There's no de-escalating. Everything's ramping up, and that's because people actually believe it. And they say,
Stop
Donald
shaking
Trump's
the
a
microphone.
Nazi, they believe it. They don't just brush it off as political theater anymore. This is like a thing they actually believe, and that's trickled down to the street level, where now it's not just Donald Trump is a Nazi, is that guy that voted for Donald Trump. He's also a Nazi. And on the other side of it, that person that voted for Hillary, she's a communist. There's no middle ground in it anymore. It's all a binary Nazi versus communist thing. And anyone that doesn't fit in that binary, in that paragon, if anyone that doesn't fit in there, they're just brushed aside.
One of the frustrations I have is where the right refuses to admit where they're wrong, but the left still hasn't admitted where they're right. So it gets really frustrating when you try to call out hypocrisy between sides and like how we can simply solve this issue if we stop yelling about it from these certain standpoints.
Definitely.
If we really stop utilizing outrage and if we just stop using apathetic outrage as an outlet for what we're upset about and actually start getting involved either locally or at least academically, at least we start being more aware of what certain policies should contain, what an actual society should look like. If we can actually build at least our policies around certain ideals that are consistent Maybe we can get a little bit deeper. Maybe you can't, finish that debate on healthcare. But you know for certain what civil rights a gay person should have, or a transgender person should have. You don't need to really be discriminated against and having this open discrimination. That's actually because when you all this disassociation you see with the left and the right, when you have it based on something more reasonable, like you actually are discriminating and probably as opposed to just being called a racist out of anger than fact, you start muddying the waters of what actually is a racist and how people should actually interact with each other. You should not be yelling at each other for all these issues. It's absolutely insane, and just using this rage and these rallies as an excuse to say, "Oh, I'm supporting," rather than say, "Oh, I'm actually doing something." No, you're just showing that you're mad. You're not going circular. You're not actually instilling any sort of change outside of being angry and not even using logic and consistency to support it.
Were there any other issues?
Not necessarily. I would recommend if anybody else does want to hear, additional pieces of the letter, additional verse, I would recommend you towards the Golden Knox show as well on Drive Lincoln. It's on SoundCloud. And what I'm excited about for Young Americans for Liberty is I really am excited about this organization. This next semester, we're going to be doing re-elections. So students who are involved at UNL, if you want to be involved in a process, if you want to get trained, you want to be mobilized, you want to get more engaged, what's going on, what you should be concerned about in terms of policy, what is going on in terms of politics in the state of Nebraska, I would absolutely encourage you to get involved with Young Americans for Liberty, because we are all about that education. We are about all aspects that are doing something to actually make a more peaceful and prosperous society. We want to base everything off the 5 principles of tolerance, limited government, free markets, individualism, and peace. We absolutely want to advocate all 5 of those things. We want to encourage policy that encompasses all.
Okay. All right. So now that we're finished talking about the letter sent to UNL, I want to talk about a different subject. And this one, as veterans, we might have a little bit more to talk about on this issue. The Pentagon recently sent a recommendation to Congress to start requiring women to sign up for the Selective Service. I'll read a little bit from this article here. The Pentagon says the country should stick with mandatory registration for military draft, and it advocates a requirement for women to sign up for the first time in the nation's history. The recommendations are contained in the Defense Department report to Congress that serves as a starting point for a commission examining military, national, and public service. Now, I think we all remember last year this was an issue in the Senate. I think John McCain was pushing it. And there was a lot of controversy surrounding it, a lot of different people having a lot of different takes on the issue. And the biggest mistake I saw, especially libertarians making, was saying, oh, well, men are required to sign up for the draft. It's only fair if women are required as well. It's the equal thing to do. And that's nonsense. That's idiotic. When the abolitionists back in the day were calling for the abolition of slavery, they didn't preface it by saying, you know what, white people should be slaves too. That's the equal and fair thing to do. No, they called for the abolition of slavery as a whole, as the institution existed. They called for it to end. And that is the only position I think that libertarians should take. That coercive military service, the selective service and the draft, should be illegal. It should be unconstitutional. It should be unthinkable. And the very thought that, right now, only half of the population is subjected to what I would call slavery in order to serve the state. The other half is free from that, and that's a good thing. We should be fighting to free the other half from mandatory military service, not enslave the half that is free from it.
Yeah, so, to me, this argument is very similar to, you'll hear people say, well, churches are tax-free, so if we want to be fair, then churches should have to be taxed. It's like, or we could all be tax-free. That sounds better to me.
Yeah, and I always equate the draft to slavery. I don't make any bones about it. The draft is slavery. Now, you'll get a lot of people that come back and say, oh, slaves don't get paid. Slaves don't get benefits. Slaves don't have an end date to their slavery. None of that matters. That is all irrelevant.
And actually,
if
historically,
I paid
those
my
that's
slaves,
not
are they any
true.
less?
Like,
Slaves don't have a choice, and that's the same thing with the draft. Is that if you don't have a choice, that's slavery. That's the basic foundation of the principle. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, what makes sex rape? A lack of consent. All right. What? And that it is consent that matters. That is literally the only thing that matters in this situation. A slave is not a slave because they don't get paid. A slave is not a slave because they don't get medical. A slave is a slave because they are being forced at gunpoint to use their labor in the service of somebody that they did not choose.
Yeah, the fact that they're getting paid and everything, that just sounds like slavery with extra steps, really. But I find this talk interesting, though, because
I'm Pickle Rick.
Myself into a pickle, Morty.
I gave them Jameson. It's my fault. But I find this talk interesting because the three of you voluntarily signed up to say, I'm going to give X number of years over to serve in some form. I didn't. But we all had the choice to do what we wanted to do. Now, I'm looking at a future here where my son and my daughter may both have to sign up for a draft. And I'm sorry, but I've got a lot of family in the military, and
none of them want that.
none of them want that. No, none of them want that. And I've always been told, I always grew up being told that if there was a war that warranted us really getting involved, if there was a situation in which we were really in danger, you would not need a draft. Much like in World War II. You wouldn't need a draft because everybody would say, I don't want my family, I don't want myself, I don't want my land, I don't want everybody over here being threatened or killed. So I'm going to go and I'm going to fight for a just war. And it's hard for me, but I have not seen a just war since I've been.
Here's what I always say about it. If America goes to war and no one signs up to fight, then either the war is not worth fighting or the country is not worth saving. And neither of those situations justifies enslaving anybody in order to save the government from whatever nonsense it's gotten us into. You know, I mean, I try to. There's an economic principle that can apply here too. It's the principle of marginal utility. And this is basically an argument to dispel all those people who think that paying somebody automatically doesn't make them a slave. Well, what are you paying them? I mean, this is the thing: is whatever it is you're paying them is below fair market price. It's not a fair market wage in any way, shape, or form. And the very fact that you have to force them to join proves that point. It doesn't matter if you're paying them $1 million. It doesn't matter at all because whatever you're paying them, they do not deem as enough to voluntarily join and fight that war. You are paying them less than what they think their labor is worth.
And E3 pay is nowhere near that.
Barring any significant inflation, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be happy with $1 million, though.
Yeah, I'd sign back up.
Exactly, but in that case, you wouldn't
pension bonuses. My
God, man! But you wouldn't need a draft in that situation.
No, absolutely not. And one of the things that I'm frustrated in this policy is that yes, it is one of those things like you want equality, you've got it, but no, we really don't need it. And along in that fight is I see you see the encroaching of putting women in combat jobs as well. That's another part of the equality battle. But to me, as coming from the Marine Corps, which is very much more combat focused, very much more combat readiness. It's not about a male environment. It's not about saying that these women are going to be more vulnerable because no, not really. Most male Marines are going to be entirely harmless. They'll have more people flirting with them, of course, but it's not going to be the cause of any real issues. The huge issues are, you have so many women getting problems out of this. I was in the Marine Corps with another female sergeant. She was the very first female sergeant to actually successfully complete the School of Infantry Instructors course. This course requires many miles of hiking under very rigorous combat loads, and she was the first female to successfully complete it. This woman did it. She walked into the battalion commander's office, and he said, I'll get you orders to stay here right now. You just tell me when to stay here. You'll stay here. Because that's extremely impressive. She was in there with other females. None of them passed. She was, to be frank, she was a bad bitch. She still is a bad bitch. She still serves in this Corps to this day. She's a family. She's an excellent Marine. I absolutely respect the absolute shit out of her. And she said, "Fuck that shit." She said, "I want to get out of here." She said, I'm going to take my talents point. I'm going to go back to the radio unit because I want to have another kid. I got better dreams for this, and this stuff is destroying my body. To the women who want to do that, that is good on you. But to the extent that you have to accommodate this, to the extent that you make this force inefficient by allowing these reduction in standards, I'm not for that. You also saw that in the administration where it was Ashford, no, not Ashford, another guy. Our past Secretary of Defense. I can't recall his name. Ash Carter. Ash Carter. Ash Carter.
Take it you don't have a good opinion.
So
basically, he spent millions of dollars and ignored the findings of a study, and it was just very wasteful, very stupid.
So on this vein a little bit, talking about standards, I don't know what it is in the Marines, and I know the Air Force doesn't care about PT. So in the Army, I could do for me to get a passing score at 24, like my run had to be 16:20, I believe, something like that. For 2 miles, 16:20. So you're looking at about an 8-10 mile twice. A 16:20 for a female my age is in the 90 percentile. It's not like for us it's 60. 60 is passing. That a 60 for me is like a 90 something for a female.
Yeah.
If you want to say if this is about equality, then it needs to be about equality, and you need my standards.
Yeah, that's the way it is in the Air Force too. I mean, I think in every branch there's a different physical standard for men and women, even though they're expected to do the same job. You know, and I don't think that this plan is mainly geared towards actual military. I don't think this plan is geared mainly towards actual military service. I mean, God knows that we don't need millions and millions and millions of badly trained grunts thrown into a meat grinder. War is technological now. It's mechanized now. The days of lining up thousands of idiots in a line and shooting a giant shotgun blast across an open field, that's long gone. Now what you want are highly trained specialists. So the very idea that we need to open up the other half of this country to military service is asinine.
Well, and there's a couple things here. I mean, we're looking at the rise of AI, right? So I mean, we're going to be putting more machines and more computers.
I'm not gonna lie, that scares the dog crap out of me.
Well, I mean, I think anybody that's watched Terminator at least more than once, it's a scare.
For whatever technology we develop in robots, I believe that we have the technology for EMPs. So I don't think it's a counter. They're always going to have these counter methods to wars. That's always going to exist.
Well, no, I'm not talking about machines taking over. I'm saying like machines don't have a soul. Like if a machine says this is a target and shoots at it, where a human's looking like, man, this isn't a target. That's a kid with a gun, and there's a better way to deal with this. That scares me.
I for one, welcome our new robot overlords, and I think you all should too.
Just make sure you set parental controls on the rules of engagement. That's about it.
I believe you were talking, Mike, until we all rudely interrupted you.
I don't even know where I was going. No.
Well, it's because you're old and you're forgetful.
It's quite all right. I mean, so just getting back to this idea of the draft, though, and the fact that the three of you each made the voluntary choice to sign up, would you rather have a group of people, serving with you, watching your back and going through everything with you that had also voluntarily signed up? Or would you rather half of that group be people that were drafted in, don't want to be there, and are really not going to put any effort in other than the fact that they probably don't want to be, court-martialed or whatever else it is?
So
I think we all would answer that we don't want that idiot grunt there. The worst people that I ever dealt with in the military were the ones that didn't want to be there anymore. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine the bad attitude someone would have that was forced to be there in the first place.
So this
it's ridiculous. It's asinine. There was this one guy in my flight. He didn't want to be there, and he just made it a living hell for everybody else that was there because he would act up and get everybody in trouble. You know?
And then the Marine Corps would dip it in the bud.
Oh, I'm sure you would. You Marines don't mess around.
Come out, you start eviscerating throats.
I mean, it came to that, but yeah, it's people that don't want to be there shouldn't be, and then that's
So even people that do want to be there, I can't speak for your guys' experience, but in my unit, so I sucked at certain being a soldier. I was just really good at being an air defender.
I was total dirtbag the whole time.
But there were a lot of people that were in my unit that were bad human beings, and I don't really want them anywhere near military grade weapons. You're going to increase that number.
Yeah, as the joke goes, since Marines, one of the tests to get in the Marine Corps is you have 3 hours to do this test, and they leave you alone in the room. Don't have any distractions. It's just a single sheet of paper and a crayon. And the two instructions are connect. You have to connect these two dots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have 3 hours to do it, and just one crayon. Just got to connect the dots and not eat the crayon. Only requirements to become a Marine. But we honestly.
I can't imagine that any Marines didn't eat the crayon.
Honestly, no. The Marine Corps, I encountered a lot of really great individuals. A lot of people were there voluntarily. One of the things I'm aware of, in reference to the draft, though, there actually is cases of, during the build-up initially in the Iraq and Afghanistan invasion, there were prisoners who were offered, okay, do you want to go to prison for your felony, for your nonviolent felony, or your grand theft felony or whatever? Or do you want to go to the Marines? Do you want to join the military, or do you want to go to prison?
That is a terrible idea.
Rights, or do you want to lose your rights? And one side, though, you can still hold a gun.
And it's like, you're putting bad people to represent us to the rest of the world.
I believe the requirement to be eligible was being nonviolent. It has to be a nonviolent offense. You can't be. I believe that was a requirement to the program. It was introductory when I was a youngin', but I'm familiar with it. It actually saving some Marines. I've read some of their books and stuff, and they reference the program.
And they have to like crayons. Crayons come in the Marine Corps MRE.
To clarify, the flesh-colored crayons taste the best.
Anyway, to get back on topic, yeah, I don't think this draft idea is primarily military based. I think what it is civil service based. You see a lot of people these days that say, you know what, young people should have to spend 2 years serving their country in order to unite the country, in order to bring it together. Some nonsense like that. I'm like, no, shut up. Now I don't care.
How are we going to pay for that?
Yeah, well, that's one. That's one.
In addition to take away college benefits if you don't sign up. If you don't sign up, you can't apply for FAFSA. That's part of the dealings if you don't sign up for the draft. You can essentially escape it, but you are not eligible for college benefits.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing about it. I mean, what it, I
don't think you can vote either.
I do think that the primary use of this program in the future is going to be civil service. It's not going to. It's not going to be, let's put a gun in your hand and send you to Iraq or whatever crazy country we're going to be fighting in 10 years. I vote Kazakhstan's going to be the next war, but we'll see about that.
I think I see North Korea as a possibility. If you guys didn't hear, a recent bomb testing tunnel did collapse, so they're a little bit set back, but they're still in our sights. We still got those specific carrier groups, so.
But like the draft of the future is going to be, when the next big depression comes, and it's going to come one of these days, it's not going to be putting people in uniform to go fight. It's going to be putting people to work building dams, building roads, this sort of nonsense. And they're going to be taking young people and saying, hey, you don't have any prospects for the future. We need you to build infrastructure.
Wait, roads?
We need to pay you pennies on the dollar. We need to pay you below market wages so that you can build this nonsense. So you can help us waste money, essentially.
Nathan.
You could actually see. Sorry, Nathan. Sorry, Zach. Go ahead.
We don't swear on this podcast. Keep the R word to yourself.
Fair enough. Anyway, but there is a certain preclusion where, there could be a national emergency where, they have a lot of draft conscriptions where they actually try to say, hey, here's a massive buildup. You're going to go to training, and we have a massive civil project. We have an entire generation of service member ditch diggers. That could be essentially a preclude to this. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Just call you up and you are now in service to build these roads or do something.
If the government ever tries to conscript me to build roads, I'm moving to Canada.
But isn't it for the good of everybody though, for the common good?
common good.
Well, we gotta let Trevor go. We could probably talk for a little bit longer. But you want to say goodbye, Trevor?
Yeah, actually, I really do want to thank you guys for coming out. If you hear this, please like Young Americans for Liberty UNL page or Facebook.com/Cornhusker YAL. We definitely want to try to get the word out. We are all about advocating all the values of liberty. We really want to bring students in. We really want to make this a chapter that really stays cemented in the state. I think that we can paint Nebraska gold, and part of that is getting our youth involved and making sure that they're passionate and knowledgeable and ready to mobilize for any sort of activism that they need to do to engage in the principles of liberty. And that's what we're all about.
Amen, brother. Hey, thanks for coming by. It was great having you. Hope to see you again one of these days back on the Guardian podcast. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you guys again. Yeah, thank you.
Now go party with your girl, man. All right. Do we want to wrap this up, or do we want to complain about the draft some more?
I think we should do events and let me go take my wonderful new pills. So for anyone, this has been a struggle for me this week. I cracked my head on my fiance's car, and it gave me a concussion on Sunday, and I've been fighting panic attacks ever since, because when my brain doesn't process very quickly, I can't fight off a panic attack. So in order to deal with that, the doctor that I saw at the VA is like, well, we're going to give you, I want to say it's Klonopin. It's like, it's in the Xanax family. And I took that today as I went to work. And so I'm driving in from Fremont to Dodge Street, Omaha, on about 168th Street. I'm like, oh dear, I should not be driving right now. And then I get to work, and I'm just sitting at my desk giggling all day, not getting anything done. So this was a bit like, if I was all over the place tonight, I apologize. I can't help it.
No, you're fine, man. So as far as events go, this coming Tuesday, we have the first Tuesday for Liberty event at the Library Pub in Omaha.
I should be there for that one.
That is awesome. That is always a fun event. We had like 3 new faces show up last time, which was really great. I always love seeing new faces show up at these events. I mean, I first got involved with the party at the first Tuesday for Liberty event, and the rest got involved. After a few of the guys that were there, I think you were there. Yeah, Mike was there. I think that first day that I came out. So I always like coming out. I always recommend it to people. It's just a fun social. Come out, have a drink, eat some popcorn if they cook their popcorn. That's half the fun. So there's that. The following Monday is the Sarpy County Libertarian Party monthly meeting. That location is going to be at the Bellevue Library, and and both these events are at 7 o'clock. The first Tuesday for Liberty and the Sarpy County Libertarian Party event are both at 7 o'clock. The Sarpy County meeting is going to be at Bellevue Library. Location is subject to change, so keep an eye on our Sarpy County Libertarian Party Facebook page, and we'll definitely update anybody if we have to move that event. I think that's it. I don't have any other events.
I do want to start putting this out there. If you're in Omaha or Douglas County, or you just want to hear about social media strategy, I will be at the Douglas County Libertarian Party, like their first Wednesday meeting. So that's going to be the 6th of December at the library on, 90th, right off of Fort. Is that?
It's the Milton's R. Abram Library, I believe is the name of it.
All right, there's a library pub on one side of the street, and then it's the library across the street from it.
So I'm going to be there giving them like a talk on effective social media strategies, and if you are wanting to kind of get some lessons on how to approach social media, I've even started to develop a plan. Like, I'm not just flying by the seat of my pants anymore. And something else I want to talk about, and we're going to talk about this in the evil council meeting a little bit. this post that we had in October, we went over 200,000 views on the Libertarian Party of Nebraska Facebook page. And that's mostly off the back of 3 posts that went very viral. So we're really getting the message out there. And I want all of our county parties to be that successful. I want your libertarian organization, like the Roads, like I work with the Roads to Freedom Foundation. Any groups like that want to come to the meeting and hear what I have to say. I'm not going to have like a PowerPoint presentation or anything, but I am going to go kind of step by step into how to build the kind of posts that are going to get attention and bring you followers.
That's what we like to hear. And I do want to say, for the 3rd month in a row, the Libertarian, the only political party in the state of Nebraska that is growing while every other party is shrinking.
Dude, the Democrats this month got slaughtered. They're almost here. I'm going to pull it up because I have it on my drive. Give me 1 second.
It's a real testament, though, that while every other political party is losing ground steadily each and every month, the Libertarian Party.
All right, so here's the thing. The Democrats went from 358,223 to 357,509. That is 700 plus lost members. That hurts.
Maybe they should stop telling everybody that they want Republicans to die.
Yeah. I mean, the Republicans, they lost 301. Like, the Republicans have plenty to lose. They're way ahead of everyone. But that hurts.
Well, so I know we've been growing, and that's something that I really like to see. I mean, year after year to see a very slow growth, but then over the last 18 months to see this explosion of growth, both with registered libertarians and with volunteers, with candidates, and everything. I mean, we are another legitimate voice in Nebraska. We're not going anywhere. We got permanent ballot access. We're the envy of a lot of other states because we don't have to fight for ballot access now. And people can register as libertarian. We can actually see that. It's not like Missouri or some of these other states where you don't have to register as a particular party. You just, every state's different. But I think Nebraska, we've got just like this great base here. One thing I'm not happy with, and I think that we can do better at, is those independents. The independents keep growing by a lot more than what we're growing by. Mm-hmm. And I know we've talked about this. We've put it out there in different podcasts. We put it out there in different forums, about giving a name to your independents and registering as libertarian instead. We really need to hammer that message home and say, look, if you want, a reasonably sized government, because ANCAPs, you're not going to get that ANCAP utopia that you want in one election. Liberty is it's a step-by-step thing, and you're going to keep moving in that direction. If you want a government that's going to be more responsive, if you want your property taxes to be lower, if you want to end the drug war, if you want to reform occupational licensing, all these other things. I mean, the Libertarian Party is where it's going to be.
And those are all state issues, so we need to focus on the state.
Yeah, stop focusing on who's president. Stop focusing on who is the head of the DNC or the LNC or the GOP or whatever it is. Start looking at who's in your school board. Start looking at who's on your legislative district, and start figuring out how you can make your own neighborhood a bit more libertarian. And I think that's where we've been winning the message. Nathan's been doing a great job. You've been doing a great job on social media. Lancaster County's been killing it. So I'm excited with what's going on in Nebraska here, and I think we're going to start earning more independents, earning more Republicans and Democrats switching over to the big libertarian and being perfectly happy with it, because we are the only reasonable voice in Nebraska politics as far as political parties go.
We're up about 600 and some odd voters in 5 months. So it's, for how small we are, that's good growth. It's not as fast as we want, but it's not an election year either. So
You know what? With that, I think we've spoken for long enough. Thank you, Mike, for hosting us. This was a lot of fun. We're gonna have to do more panel discussions like this in the future. Trevor was a great guest to have on. Talks really fast. If he ever goes on the Ben Shapiro show, they'll have an hour's worth of content in 15 minutes.
yeah.
But yeah, okay. With that, we'll say goodbye. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Guardians of Liberty podcast. Thank you, Mike, for hosting us. And listen again next time, guys. Thanks for stopping by.
Have a great weekend, everybody.